Okay, I think it's working. First, let me say peace and kind of look up here. Peace. This is not exactly a tutorial. It's more like, I mean, if it works out for somebody that way, that's great. But it's more like me reminding myself of something I've been doing since back in February, because often in life I've had the habit of dropping a habit and going on to something else and then coming back again and having to remember everything or re-research. Is that a word? I don't think so. But what you see here on the screen, what I think it's recording, is me down here in that corner right there on the screen. That's me. So you can kind of see behind the scenes a little bit, but that's not really the point. It's just when I start using the iPad, it's sometimes nice to see what the person's doing with their hand and pencil. And a lot of this I cobbled together from other people's videos, so I can't take credit for all of it. It's nothing new or sensational here. But what I've been doing is collage, like digital collage, on a Procreate, on an iPad that has a Procreate app on it, which costs about $10, like everybody says, only $10. But if you factor in the cost of an iPad and the Apple Pencil, which is what this is, this thing that kind of looks like a pencil, which should be called a brush, but that's okay. It's a lot more than $10. Let's put it that way. But let's get to this so it's just not super long. I'm calling it collage using Procreate on an iPad. As you can see there on the screen, I'm going to grab the keyboard and see if I can scroll down through this. I think I have to be on it to do that. So the first step in what I've been doing since way back in February, and it's nothing new again, this is the same thing people do with paper collage. They call it harvesting. I call it harvest images. In other words, you got to go somewhere and find some image or draw them, which is fine too if you're up for that. But I'm not up for that, given how much stuff there is out there already. It's unbelievable, really. So I will read this a little bit, but I'm not going to read totally. Then I'll hop back and forth between this and reading. And I'll show some screens and do some doodles and all that kind of stuff and walk you kind of through doing a collage. So it says here, if you're new to digital collage, the simplest way to start is by downloading copyright-free images. There are many websites offering images such as Unsplash, Pexels, Pixabay, and Google Images. But with Google, you have to be sure to click Tools, then click Creative Commons. So you can really just be looking at the ones that are copyright free. Then I go on to say, at this point, I try not to focus on any preconceived design or the final result. I am not searching for specific images, but those that speak to me. By speak to me, I kind of like looking at that day. For me, it feels appropriate to let the images act as catalysts for how to proceed. The process of coming up with a design, like the layout, how you want something to look, is fuzzy on the best days. That's true. It's like groping or feeling my way toward the unknown. I always want to say towards. There are no rules to follow, of course. I spend time with the images. For some reason, I won't highlight that one. I spend time with the images. I stare at them, move them, blend them until my muse arrives. Clever way of saying until I see something I like, I guess. So I won't continue reading this now. I will go and hop to the first part of this. I'll show you quickly how I harvest. Get rid of the notes. How I harvest images. And that's my web page there. So this little box at the bottom of it, I don't know if the cursor shows up, probably not. But if it does, there's a little box here from Fine Art America which shows the stuff I've uploaded there. I mean, yeah, it's for sale, but and don't feel obligated to buy it. It's a nice place to have them to look at even. So there's one from the day, which we're going to try to recreate. I called Watchers. You can see a little angel, a little cherub, somebody in a misty forest going that way if it'll hold still. And here it is up there on their website. This is one way I like looking at all of these, even though it repeats my name over and over and the price, which is annoying, but that's the whole point of it, I guess. But I can quickly scroll through and look back at the past ones and see if there's progress, or just look at them again or whatever. This makes it an easy way. It's a nice, not too big, not too small size. I guess they're still called thumbnails, but they're pretty good size. You can see some detail in them. If you click on one, you'll see a larger version. I'll click on one here in a second. There's one of my favorites right there called Seeing Beauty, if that came up on screen. And there's another favorite I called Zanshin. That's a nice one, Unaware. Well, I think they're nice, but there's 2 pages of these, so you can see I've been busy since, I guess, the end of February. But anyway, let's go back to looking at today's previous. There we go. I'll click on it so we go to it. That's today's already up there, ready to do whatever. It says somebody's looked at it, so that's always nice to see. It doesn't mean much because mostly they don't buy, but that's okay. Not everybody can afford art, or they may even not consider it art, whatever. But it's there, and that's nice, I think. It's free. Well, I mean, I'm paying the $30 a year just so I can do unlimited number, but it's free if you just cycle through a different set of 25. Now, in the thing I read before to you, I mentioned a site called Unsplash. Now, there's Unsplash, photos for everyone, they call it. Usually they're like selfies, but there are some good photos and illustrations. And this is one we're going to use in this little example I'm going to go through here. And you can see you just find what you're looking for. There's a nice little search box right there. And then when you find it and you're like, oh, I like that, you just click download free. You don't have to join or nothing. And then it just comes up and you put it somewhere. In my case, as you can see over here on the side, I have an iCloud. Pay $3 a month for some ridiculous amount of storage, 200 gigabytes or something. I think in all this time I've only gotten up to, maybe it's close to 60 gig. So there's a long ways to go. I could easily get a year at the way I'm doing these right now. So you would click save, and then it would save it. I already have it, and it pops up this little thing where you can say thanks to the person or probably give them money. I don't know, but I don't think that's what it's about. I think in this case, since it's a free site, it's about just sharing their stuff, which someday I might do that back, you know, repay the favor, so to speak. So let's go back to my home page, and I'm going to minimize this because I don't think I need it anymore. So now the screen's going to look wonky. So at this point, it'll be black for a second, and I'll put up the iPad. So what I'm going to show in this part, and you can see my hand doing stuff over here, and I don't know if that helps or just makes it more confusing, but what the screen is going to show is the result of anything I tap on. So here, for example, we're kind of at the point, even though I haven't read it yet, maybe I should go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and read that, and then we'll be caught up enough to proceed. So let's see, I'll go back to notes for a second, turn off the iPad, and find the notes. There we are. We're on this section called Creating a Canvas. Okay, so here I say, on an iPad using the Procreate app, that's the $10 thing you download and it installs, it is easy to create or duplicate an existing canvas for the imported images. By imported images, I mean the ones that we just harvested. In our case, I just showed grabbing that one picture of a statue of an angel, or angel-like. It's a very broken statue. But then I go on to say, for me, this seems to have worked all along, even though I got the size wrong here. My typical canvas is 8 by 12 inches. I don't think that's correct. Let me look real quick. No, it is not correct. My typical canvas is 12 inches by 18 inches. But to be quite honest, it doesn't matter as long as it's kind of big. So that's probably fine, 8 by 12, but I'm 12 by 18 at 300 DPI. That might matter a little bit for printing, especially in books. But there are many choices. In fact, you can go as big as your iPad will go. The problem with that sometimes is the next statement. Since a canvas is comprised of layers, and layers are very important, it's important to have enough layers to work with. That's where you do all your stuff, you're blending, you're moving around. Everything basically ends up on one layer, on several layers. In other words, like there's a layer for each image. You can cram them into one, but then it becomes difficult to get blending and color and erasing and all the things you got to do for collage. So that's important. You want some balance. I think I end up with around 30 some layers, and I typically use half of that. So I could do an even bigger canvas. But I'll show a picture here in a minute, which will give you an idea how things look when you print them. It's a balancing act between canvas size, DPI, and layers. In other words, you got to get a big enough picture to upload and print on things if you want, and yet have enough layers that you can do what you're trying to do. You can do your artwork. It is easier to shrink the final artwork than to enlarge it, and that's true of any of this. So we'll stop here at the digital dance, and I'll come back over here and bring back the iPad and get rid of the notes. So here we are. Let me get completely out of this so you can just get the full idea. And I'd be sitting here in the morning, drinking coffee and whatever, talking, thinking, but not thinking about the art per se. And this little colorful rainbow-like feather-looking thing that looks like a quill pen right beside the Gmail, that's Procreate. So I tap on that, and then right away you're brought into this thing where you can keep stacks of your art together. And each artwork is basically a canvas. So there where it says collage, I'll wiggle it or something. There where it says collage 132 artworks, that's what I've been doing since February. So let's tap and go into that stack. And as you can see, if I can scroll this slowly enough, I've been doing quite a few of these since February. Some are better than others. Some I wouldn't repeat if I did it again. But hey, you do what you do in the moment that you do it. And hopefully my head over here in the left isn't too much in the way. I don't think it will be when we start drawing. But for now, they scroll up past. And there's one of my favorites right there, Seeing Beauty. Whoops. Sorry. Tapping, it wants to go in. So quickly, I think we'll get to the bottom, but they start to get less interesting, I think, but still, there's a little logo down here in the lower left corner that I use in all of them. It's kind of like signing your art. So let's quickly go back to the top. This is the one we saw before that's already up there, but we're going to pretend we're starting over. So that's our canvas, which is, if we look here, canvas information, we can see it's those sizes, but it's basically 12 inch by 18 inch, 300 That gives us 30 layers to work with. That's pretty good, or at least for what I've been doing, it's pretty good. We want to make sure that we have RGB color space, but I don't see any problems with having it the way it is. So let's try that again, see if it changed the color profile. It did, that's fine. Video, this Procreate can, I don't use it, but it can record your brush strokes so you can play it back. You see those on YouTube, those videos. Statistics, yeah, you know, I don't care about any of that stuff. But basically, we would have, let's see if we did them all. I'll get rid of this one. You can see what I'm doing here with the pencil versus what it does up there. It's kind of hard to show both. So I'm going to delete that one, and we're going to go do a common action here is the insert. You could insert a photo. You can take a photo and start there. But let's insert one. And I believe the one I got rid of was this little cherub. There we go. So, and that was not the first one I would have brought in, but we'll look at that one. That was the one that for me kind of set the mood for what I was going to do. But often I will start down here where it says background color. And I have this, the harmony way of selecting colors instead of this color wheel you typically see, or this classic where you do the sliders. I kind of like this thing where you can move it around. And one of the, hopefully this isn't too dusty. One of the things you can always do when you change your mind about something is tap 2 fingers on the screen anywhere and it takes back the last thing you did. So that makes life a lot easier. Try doing that with acrylic paint or something, or charcoal. Anyway, here's the first one I would have brought in, and if I recall, I started doing stuff like this because as you can see, it doesn't really fit the screen. So there's this section. I'm not going to be real detailed on this, but if somebody wanted a more thorough demonstration, I would be willing to do that, but I would have to plan it better than this. And I often hit fit the screen. Now when you bring in something that's more horizontal than vertical, it's not going to do much. So you got to go, I tap on freeform, and then I'll pull the bottom down, and then I pull the top up, then I pull the sides out, and try to get it where I think it'll end up. I don't think that's how it ended up, but we're close. Okay, so there's that, and I probably would have at this point tried, let's see, I probably would have tried a multiply for the blend mode. And what that's doing is this layer, the one with the guy walking or person walking down the middle of the road off into a misty forest, the colors in there are blending with this background color. So it gives it a whole different look. If I turn off the background color, you can see it goes back to something that's more like a photograph. Okay, so we got that. Now, we would have picked another image, and this is all where you get to play around. You know, would you have picked this? Probably not, but for some reason I did today. So let me move the mic here so I can see what I'm doing. And another thing you're going to do a lot in Procreate anyway is I'm tapping on this thing that looks a bit like an eraser. There's the brush for drawing, there's a smudge for smudging, and there's an eraser for erasing. And almost always I'm using airbrushing soft brush, but you can use other brushes to get different things. And one of the first things you're going to see here is, since this is still set to normal for its blend mode, you just see it. But as soon as I start erasing, that's what I'm doing. I'm getting rid of this because I know I don't want it. Not that it's not cool and all, but I don't want that. That's not where I'm headed. And as I do this, you see the other layer behind it, which has the person walking down the middle of the road, is starting to show through. And then this is where eventually you can only do so much of this where you have to give up. And you have to do the equivalent of what they say in the paper collage, a term they use called fussy cutting or fussy cut. In other words, you got to get really a smaller brush. Whoops. See how I touched his butt there and messed it up? And then I double tap with the 2 fingers and it goes back to the way it was. A nice thing to have. A nice digital thing to have around. And I'm basically just trying to outline the statue because that's all I want to keep. So that's one way of erasing. I won't make you watch every little detail of this, but eventually you take your fingers and kind of pinch, but you're just putting them down at the same time and moving them apart, and you can drag as you do that. And there, we got his hiney. And you'll also see when I tap on the screen, hopefully, a circle comes up. That's something that Procreate calls the brush cursor, which you can turn on and off. I find that for this kind of for painting, it gets in the way. But for this kind of thing, you want to know exactly where the edge of that brush is. Like we're trying to get rid of everything but this statue's bottom. And see, this kind of helps guide me close to his foot, his bottom. And you have to look close sometimes to see if you left some light places behind. And then you have your fingers further apart, touch the screen together and bring it back down to the regular size. Or if you do it real quick, it does it on its own, but it has a tendency to put it in the center. So let's pretend we did that, everything we need to do with that one. So I will turn it off and turn on the one that I did already. And there it is. And all the colors haven't come through yet. So we'd probably keep him off, and then we would work on this little bitty layer here, which will eventually look like that. So let's bring her up and turn the background off. Now here I'll show another way to erase, which took me a while to figure out. Like I didn't see a video anywhere where anybody does this, but I guess maybe it's just an obvious thing that wasn't obvious to me. So I tap on this. Oops. You have to be, sometimes it will say that. Let's do that again. See how it's saying hidden layer? It kind of knows somehow that that's the only layer that's turned on, and so I should have that highlighted like that. So now I come over here and I want to select it, and you can move it up and down and stuff, but you got to use one finger. And wherever you put it, here's the magic for this kind of erasing. Wherever you put it, like we get as close to the edge as possible at the top and this right hand side of the statue, then when we tap this, that's gone. Let's do it again. This time I'm going to shrink this down a little because I want to get rid of most of the stuff on the right of the statue and the bottom of the statue. This little cherub. Almost a little too much. Gone. Now see, in terms of time and repetition, even though I enjoy the repetition myself, that gets rid of a lot of stuff you don't have to erase. Now you just got this, go around this cherub, get rid of stuff you don't think you want. Again, you can change your mind. Like I could say, oh geez, I wanted that, but I don't. So I get rid of it and kind of guess what I want, what I don't want. And there is an automatic mode, but the problem with it is sometimes, like in that example, I tapped outside here in what would be the background or the forest behind this statue, but look at how some of the color is the same as the statue itself. So anywhere you see that white, if I do the swipe and cut, it's going to get rid of part of the statue. I didn't get that at first either. So we just get out of there and go back to, most of the time, this is what I do. Over here on the left, you see these sliders? This can make the brush really big. See how the cursor got big, that circle? You can make it smaller. You can also make it not quite as opaque. In other words, it takes a lot of erasing to get rid of that little nub right there. See how much? That's because this isn't turned up. Now when it's turned up all the way, it's gone like instantly. Sorry about the mess on the screen. If that's showing up. I don't think it shows up on a computer, but it shows up on that camera. So let's pretend again that we're done with her. So this is the enjoyable part of all this. Or it should be. If it's not, well, then maybe digital collage is not the thing for you. So let's put it back in the order you kind of remember me trying to do them. So we're going to put back the guy walking down the street. Yeah, there's some stuff in there that wasn't there before because in the final changes that would have come up. They put the angel in there. He's starting to come together now. Let's put the little cherub back. She's blue because of how I chose to blend her. I did divide. If I'd have done subtract, she'd have looked different. Exclusion, see her changing there. But I kind of like that blue. Reminds me of blue glass with a candle in it or something. And let's see. Since this is a simple one, I did move the guy up and kind of halo him. So here he comes, or guy, person, whoever's walking off that way. And just to spare you the watching, I did take this wing on the right, which I can do a freehand around so you can see what I'm talking about. I did do something like this, and I copied it. And then I flipped it horizontal, which is how the wing on the left was done. So it kind of looks, and it's drawing your eye down the road there, hopefully. Or my eye anyway. So we covered the background color. We covered selecting your images, bringing them in, the size of your canvas, yada yada. So basically we've done the whole section. Now at the end, if you consider yourself artful enough or arty enough, you would put your little signature in there. There's mine, which looks like a person sitting on a hill in some grass with a starry eye. That's really CLS. I know, clever, huh? But so now we're back to where it was when I left it this morning, as you can see there on the screen. And let's get rid of the iPad. I think we're done with the iPad because that's enough for me. If I came back to this in the future, for me, that's enough of a reminder to get started with this. Obviously, this is not a full-on Procreate tutorial because there's some other things you got to pick up on, but it's not that difficult if you play with it every day like I have since February. It's not that hard. Let's go and let's see. Turn on the notes and turn off the iPad, and we'll kind of recap what we just did, which I called this whole thing we just did the digital dance. And I'll just read it. Creating an artwork using Procreate is, for me, sorry if that's noisy, a digital dance comprised of light and movement. In other words, my muse would be the light and movement. And let's see, here we go. Performing this dance involves limiting, now this is for me, limiting the number of images I import into a collage. Having a layer for each image. Moving those layers, because as you move them up and down, colors will change, the way they interact with each other will change. Sometimes that's called blending, sometimes something else. I guess it's always blending, but it seems like something else is going on in terms of what gets cut off, what is shown, what disappears, what's hidden. Anyway, within a particular layer, an image may be isolated, moved, cropped, erased, or fussy cut, as in paper collage. When I was doing it real precisely and exactly, that's what they would call fussy cut. And that does make a difference for these things. Then I say apply clipping mask. That's where one thing has to fit inside another thing. That happens a lot too. Distort is a way you can change the perspective so something looks right. It doesn't look like a statue. It looks like something in real life or whatever you're shooting for. There's warp. You can blur. There's all kinds of other digital effects that I didn't cover. And then here I say blending layers above and below will reveal interesting effects and our new colors. And it also does the hidden and shown thing that I mentioned. Many times I repeat the above steps until the aha moment happens, if it does happen. And then here's a reminder to myself, not that I need a reminder, but a lot of times, like in a lot of things, it's all in the waiting. In other words, you got to be patient enough for whatever it is, the surprise maybe, to come along. So I say at this point, I may have tried this, that, and lots of movements, but it's not happening. By not happening, I mean I don't like what I'm looking at or seeing at that point. For me, there's nothing to do but wait sometimes, like often. This waiting, as I'm calling it, may involve coffee, conversation, a long walk, or staring at more art, which does help. Not that they're still their design, but something about looking at art is, I don't know, it's good. It's helpful. This is all to say that waiting is a common occurrence, and that I try to be patient with the process. Eventually the surprise will happen, but always of its own accord, and it can't be hurried. So that's a little preachy, philosophical, whatever it is. But I think that's it for this video. I don't think I had anything else. Maybe we could look again at, did I leave it up? No. Maybe we could look again at the final result, which is up on Fine Art America. Not to be advertising, but let's see if we can find it. They give you this little box you can put on your website. This little box I'm clicking on right here. And we'll get back to the one we just did. There it is. I called it Watchers. So if I tap on this, it's going to bring up the big version that's out there on their site, where you can only do this little green box and highlight various places, like right there. You can see my little logo. So I'm hoping that this is helpful to others, but it may not be, and that's okay. There's yesterday's. So I don't forget, I give you like 6 or 7 in here before you get back to the beginning. Yeah. So with that, I'm gonna get rid of this and get rid of that and make this full screen maybe so I can say goodbye. Oh, I can't. I can't. Oh, I'm not on it. Let's try it now. Fit to screen is what I'm looking for. There we go. So that was, I think this is last year or the year before's iPad, something like that. And let me get out of this. And the one where the pencil snaps magnetically clicks to the top and starts charging, which seems magic in and of itself. This is also magic. The what is it? The wild blueberry Tootsie Roll Pop. But anyway, with that, I will try to turn sideways and say, oh wait, before I forget, the one that I kind of showed, this is purchased. I purchased this from Fine Art America just to show what you end up with. This is one of the cheaper ways to buy it, I believe. But look, it's framed. It's in plexiglass. It's on what looks like a textured, I think they call it rag, like paper or canvas, maybe canvas. Look at the back. You get hardware. You get these little felt thingies, and you get a hair. You get felt thingies to keep it off the wall, which is cool. And this thing to put it over the hook. All that done for you and shipped in a way that protected it. So now that would be the actual size if the iPad were able to let you do a piece of art at its actual size. This is the 12 by 18. And it might have a glare in it, sorry. I'm trying different ways of holding it to see if I can get rid of it. That looks pretty good right there. So there's that. Now that exact same thing also printed up on something that's like much larger. They call these tapestries. But look at that thing. It's like 60 inches, 5 feet across or something. And when you get in there and look at it up close, you know, there isn't any pixelation or anything. So that image can be enlarged quite a bit doing it however they do it there. They have an impressive setup. I don't know that I would ever sell that much there, but it's impressive, and all their stuff seems to work pretty well. So I just wanted to add that at the end. So with that, we'll pick up the little candle here, kind of a candlelight video. Not a real one, it's a fake one, but it is working. So with that, I will say peace.